Here comes the money. You're now listening to the Gambling with Gold podcast with Jason Gold. Presented by Champions Round.
Hello and welcome to Gambling with Gold. My name is Jason Gold, and on this episode, I am excited to be joined by Dr. Ed Feng. He is the proprietor of thepowerrank.com. He also hosts multiple podcasts, including covering the spread and the football analytics show. He literally wrote the book on how to win your March Madness bracket pool. I cannot wait to talk to him about the Sweet 16 and reconnect after many, many years of chasing him down online when I used to work at Bleacher Report for all of his numbers and information to make me sound like I knew what the heck I was talking about writing articles for Bleacher Report. So anyways, Ed, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Really excited to be here and talk some basketball.
All right, so the Sweet 16 starts Thursday afternoon, 4 p.m. West Coast time. First game on the board, Arkansas plus 9.5 versus Gonzaga. The total sitting at 155.5 right now, according to BetMGM. Excited about this game. Gonzaga has had two, probably closer than they wanted to play in the first 2 weeks. The game against Memphis, obviously a 9 seed, but playing way above their head there. Really talented squad. Took them all 40 minutes to get it done. Where do you kind of land on this number? Looked like it opened at around 8.5, now sitting at around 9.5 in most markets. What's your take on this game?
I believe Gonzaga to be the prohibitive favorite in this tournament. I believe it's Gonzaga and then a gap and then other teams that can also contend for the national title. Two of those teams actually lost in the East region, I believe, Baylor and Kentucky. I thought they were in there, but as far as this game goes, I certainly believe that I believe Gonzaga should be the prohibitive favorite. I really like it's remarkable what Mark Few has done there up in Spokane. The college basketball system is kind of set up so these little people don't ever get to the top of the sport, yet he's somehow been able to do that. 7 straight Sweet 16s and just great consistency with the program. I think he's eventually going to get a national title. I still wouldn't make him the favorite to do that this year, just with what's going on. But he's got a great program there, and I really like that team. I have this number at Gonzaga minus 8.5 with my model, and I actually bet Gonzaga at 8.5 because usually when you see these favorites with the Gonzaga, the top teams in the nation, you have to pay a point or two to bet that favorite, right? And I actually expected this line to get to 9.5. I'm surprised I got there this fast. I did bet yesterday. I'm not sure there's as much value betting the favorite here. Actually, we'll talk about it with Duke too, another favorite that was kind of getting the credit in the markets, and that has completely evaporated. But
go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, and just one thing, they got a heck of a game from Memphis, and Memphis is a really talented team with multiple NBA players, and we should acknowledge that. But they were awful. Gonzaga was awful from the foul line, and they made their last 6 to kind of sneak above 50% for the game, but they were awful from the line, which kept that game close. Multiple of those shots were the front end of 1-and-1s. So you can easily see that being a 9-10 point game, pretty close to what the spread expected had they shot kind of their normal percentage from the foul line. So, I don't hold that game as like, oh, this isn't quite the team that we thought it was. And maybe we'll talk about another seed, which I think maybe it is a warning sign for that team that they're not as good as we thought they were. But I still believe in this Gonzaga team. There's nothing to put me off there. I'm not sure if I would bet minus 9.5, but I do like this Gonzaga team.
Yeah, I bet Gonzaga at minus 8.5 also, and then I rebet it. I saw it at minus 9 at one of my books. So I was like, okay, I think 9 is probably my breaking point here. 9.5, I'll stay away. Kind of like the under here. I do not really like this Arkansas team. I think they're okay. Like they're a decent SEC team, but I don't think they do anything particularly special that's going to slow down Gonzaga what they want to do.
Right.
I also think that Gonzaga potentially having Chet for the entire game instead of him, being in foul trouble the entire game is going to make a huge difference. And Timmy, just like we saw in the tournament last year until the national championship game, that guy is so reliable. And I think against this Arkansas team, he can see a lot of his success. I actually personally have a stake in Gonzaga. I'm in a weird pool where basically it's a 64-team pool, everyone gets a team, and you basically have to cover and advance. So we got Memphis. So we got Memphis first game they covered against Boise. We got Memphis against Gonzaga. They cover and lose. So then we get gifted Gonzaga because they covered and lost. So I have Gonzaga for the rest of the tournament, unless someone knocks them off. But I don't know how. There's no way that Gonzaga is going to be an underdog in any game the rest of the way, I don't believe, unless there's some sort of massive injury. Right. So I need Gonzaga to cover all the way out. And hopefully it starts here against Arkansas. Do you have any take on kind of the total in this game at 155.5?
Yeah, I don't bet much totals. Obviously, it seems like a very high one because both these teams like to play fast. Gonzaga likes to play fast. They're also uber efficient as well. But no opinion on the total.
All right. Yeah, the adjusted offensive tempo for both, according to Ken Palm, Arkansas is 28 and Gonzaga is 6. So you would expect to be a pretty high tempo game, which I'm going to guess also favors Gonzaga. I think they're probably a little bit better at playing that offensive tempo game.
Right, and it also means that they're probably just a little bit more likely to cover a big number as well.
Got it. All right, second game on the board. This game is in San Antonio. Pretty interesting. Michigan plus 4.5. I know that you're in Ann Arbor versus Villanova. 134.5 is the total. Market, at least BetMGM sitting at 4.5. Little juice 115 towards Nova. This opened at really 5.5 towards Michigan. And I have a feeling that you may be fading Go Blue in this situation.
Yeah, I have been betting Michigan a lot the last, I would say, 3 weeks. And it has been an interesting combination of betting on them and then betting against them. And I don't think this is a particularly good Michigan team. It's clearly a disappointment from the team that started the season number 6 in the preseason AP poll. But I do believe this team has potential and a very bright future. Caleb Houston and Moussa Diabate are talented 5-stars that maybe aren't quite playing like 5-stars yet. And I think we've seen kind of a startling upside from Frankie Collins. He was I don't forget what his star rating was, but Devontae Jones, the point guard, got injured. Frankie Collins has come in and shown he's certainly quicker, and had a nice game against Colorado State. A game that I might have given up on this program if they hadn't pulled that off, because Michigan was clearly the better team and they just needed to play like it, which they finally did in the second half. Coming into the tournament, I talked about this on my podcast on the Bracket Wisdom series. Michigan had a really kind draw. I had them as about 3+ point favorite against Colorado State, so that's the 11 over the 6. And then I did not have them. I only had them as a 3-point dog to Tennessee. So I had the side there. And then I have them right now I have them as a 3.5-point dog to Villanova. I do see some value on this Michigan team. I also, again, I don't think they're a very good basketball team. So it could be one of these games where they just simply don't show up. Villanova is talented. It's not quite the teams that won national titles for Jay Wright. They're not as good defensively. But they're still a solid team, a very difficult out. And, Juwan Howard has never failed to make the Elite Eight as a player or a coach. So he's got a lot riding on this game. I'm not necessarily sure he gets it done, but I do like Michigan's side.
All right. So Michigan, is there specific numbers? Is 4.5 too low for you, or do you think that's still a viable point?
Yeah, I think it's still a viable point. I actually haven't bet it yet. I'm probably going to go to it after we jump off the show. Simply because I was, you get in these dumb moods where you're like, oh, I missed a better number. I'm not going to bet it, even though there's still probably value in it. That's kind of the boat I'm in right now. I am going to go bet this. I think it's fine at 4.5, especially if the juice is going the right way at BetMGM. So my number is Villanova by 3.7 points.
Okay, so 3.7 for Villanova. Michigan, BetMGM, plus 4.5, minus 105. So that's probably the breaking point here. Plus 4, we're probably out.
Plus 4. Plus 4. I'm probably not interested in, but I think there'll be 4.5s, and I'm not sure it gets any lower than 4.5.
I think you might, based on the juice, you might see a 5 before we're said and done here. So I think it's possible. Everywhere that I'm looking, I see the juice is 115 or shaded towards Nova. The only question is, Michigan's such a public school. Is there going to be public buyback come Thursday? where this line settles at 4.5. So maybe you see a 5, but I think that betting at 4.5, you're probably fine here. I have not made a determination on this game. I am a little interested based on what I'm looking at on the over 134.5. My number says 137. Problem is their tempos are just absolutely terrible. I know that Villanova is pretty efficient offensively, but their tempo, Michigan's 202, Villanova 345. So despite the fact that Villanova is 8th in the offensive ranking per Ken Palm and Michigan is 19th, they're going to have to be very efficient against each other to make up for that tempo. So based on those numbers, I'm supposed to bet the 137, but a little dicey. So I might stay away from that. All right, next game on the board. This is a super interesting game. Game opened as Duke minus 0.5 in most places. Now it is up to Texas Tech minus 1.5. This game is being played in San Francisco. So Texas Tech minus 1.5, total sitting at 137.5. I'm wondering, seems like the first shot where the Coach K retirement tour might actually come to a stop here. This Tech team is very, very interesting. Obviously, the best defensive team in the country. Duke, their potential is, out of bounds. They have so many NBA guys. They can't even play all of them. And yet, they're so young, you can't trust them in a one-game scenario. They're so volatile. So what do you think is going to happen in this one?
I completely agree. Duke has the highest ceiling of any team in this tournament. Every single one of their starters might get picked in the first round of the next NBA draft. You can clearly see the talent. What I'm interested in is how the markets have behaved with this team. So if you think back to the regular season finale against North Carolina, I had a number of that game. I think maybe it was 9.5, and the markets gave Duke that extra respect as one of the favorites. I think they had minus 11 or something along those lines, which is what you expect with a talented team, a team that a lot of people saw as the favorite, one of the favorites heading into the tournament. And then we all know what happened. So they completely blew it in the second half in Coach K's finale, and North Carolina won. I actually bet Duke to win the ACC tournament, which was looking very good simply because the conference sucks. And then they get into that final, and Virginia Tech just shoots the lights out.
Yep.
And I think that is the bigger culprit. I think Virginia Tech is a good 3-point shooting team, and they shot really well. Was Duke's defense great? No, it wasn't great at all. But yeah. So anyways, they lost, and the markets have kind of started to shift. You could kind of see that Duke number was right on my the Duke line was right on my number against Virginia Tech, which I thought was kind of interesting because I'm not exactly sure how much we should have downgraded. I know they struggled a little bit in those two games before that, and now we get to the second round of the tournament. And let's so they need a late comeback to beat Michigan State, but Michigan State shot the lights out from 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Duke did not. Duke definitely won in 2-point range, which they should based on their length and their talent and Banchero's talent. Banchero against Joey Hauser he often has these games where there's a guy that has no prayer of guarding him.
Yep.
And that was one of them. Duke finally ended up winning the game. So they survived, and I know it doesn't look good, but Michigan State shot the lights out. And now we're coming into a game against Texas Tech. We still know about Duke's ceiling. And Texas Tech is a very good team, but they're not very tall. They don't have anyone over 6'9". And this was not a very highly regarded team coming into the season. They weren't even in the preseason top 25, which might seem a little weird for me to talk about, but I actually use the preseason poll as an assessor of team strength because it's predictive. So I think this one's easy. I bet Duke this morning. They should not be a dog in this game. My number says they should be about a 0.5-point favorite. I think they could be more. I think it's the kind of game where, yes, Texas Tech is a great defensive team, great defensive program under Mark Adams, but the superior talent of Duke has a potential to show up here and really take over this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Duke won handily. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost either. But I definitely think there's value here. And if Duke's not favored in this game, I think there's value.
Yeah, so obviously they opened a little favorite. Now Texas Tech 1.5. The market says, so I'm looking at Action Network right now, 36% of the bets are on Texas Tech, 47% of the money. So plus 11% there. So it's definitely a little sharp. Obviously, to move 2 points, you've definitely got a lot of early sharp action here on Texas Tech. I'm kind of with you. I'd rather take the chance on Duke overperforming in this game or performing to their potential with the guys that they have than banking on them to be terrible versus a Texas Tech team that I just don't like. They're way more steady, right? And you're right. They may come out, have a great defensive plan, stop Banchero, and win this game. Maybe they coast because Duke can't shoot the ball at all. But I think that you're right. That size inside for Duke, they might just have a lot of easy buckets. And I would like to see Duke actually increase the tempo here and not play to what Texas Tech wants to do. I say you take it right at them. And if you lose that way, you lose. But you might as well use the athleticism that you've converted your entire program in order to bring in these sort of guys. This is what you're supposed to do. Yep. Why play to what Texas Tech wants to do? So I'll be interested. Maybe this is more of a live play. If I see Duke's tempo, and they're playing sort of the right way early on, maybe that's the time where we go ahead and, lay some lumber on Duke live money lines.
Yeah, for sure. I believe in the upside of this Duke team. Yes. Has their defense been great the last couple of weeks? No. And we've seen that in the numbers, but they still have the talent to get this done.
All right, last game of Thursday, Houston plus 1.5 versus the Arizona Wildcats. This game is in San Antonio. Total is 145.5. Line opened at 2, now at 1.5. Ed, I read your newsletter this morning. You can go to the Power Rank, go subscribe to that. It's free, comes right to your email, and I got some good nuggets from that. And I know that you like the Cougars in this game. Can you explain to me why?
Yeah, Kelvin Sampson is an unbelievable team. They've always been a great defensive program, and nothing is new, even though this team doesn't have a single starter from that Final Four team from a year ago. And they're also really good on offense. You can tell again that Illinois, you can see it in the numbers, they're top 10 in offensive efficiency, but you can see what they do against Illinois. They move the ball quickly. They got guys that can drive and hit some shots. They're very efficient from inside the stripe as well. I like to call him little Kevin Durant. Fabian White is kind of an incredible story in that he didn't start last year, came off the bench, kind of did some rebounding, did some dirty work, took, I think, 5 3-point shots last season, has come in. He wears number 35. He's kind of tall and skinny, and he's got a Durant-like release. And he's all of a sudden made himself into a 40% 3-point shooter on over 100 attempts. And it's a pretty incredible turnaround. I really do believe in. I think this Houston team is good. My numbers make this a pick. I do see some value. Arizona. I highly respect this Arizona team. It's an interesting one. Again, like Texas Tech, they weren't in the top 25 in the preseason poll. But when you look at this team, you're kind of like, what were you guys thinking, right? Benedict Mathurin is a clear NBA talent, and Christian Coloco is also as well. They struggled against TCU, and unlike Gonzaga, where they just missed a bunch of foul shots, like I don't think you can necessarily come up with the same explanations for this Arizona team. They got taken to them by a pretty good TCU team. Needed overtime to win. Arizona was definitely the better team, but might they be a little bit overrated as 1 seed? I think that's possible. Is this Houston team really good, even though they don't necessarily project as too many NBA players? Yeah, I think I trust my numbers on this one. I do think there's value on Houston. And there was a +2 at DK this morning.
Oh, there you go. So a little +2 on the board. This, for me, is the best game of Thursday, and I don't think it's particularly close. Style-wise, just the talent on the floor, the style of coaching, how different it's going to be. Houston, it kind of maybe not quite like last year, but a little bit of that Texas Tech. They'll lock you down on D. And Arizona, kind of in the Gonzaga mold, they just want to fly. And like you mentioned in your newsletter, they do have some turnover issues, but it's because of their quick passing game. It's almost like the soccer. It's like ding, ding, ding all over the place. And they move it quickly, and they're able to find open spaces all over the floor. Just a matter of if they're getting to the line, if they're hitting their free throws, if they're hitting their threes. I don't know what to expect in this game. The TCU performance versus Arizona scared the crap out of me if I'm an Arizona fan. That TCU team is really tough, though. And so is this Houston team. So
Yeah.
I don't know this. I don't know what's gonna happen in this game. I'm interested to see. I have no bet on it, no dog in the fight. But I can guarantee you that if any team gets down by more than like 8 points, I'll be betting them live as a dog for sure. Because I think this is going to end up as a 1-possession game at the end of 40 minutes.
No, I think you're right that this is the best game of this round. And I would argue that the best game of the round of 32 was Houston, Illinois. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're seeing a pattern. Like, this Houston team is really good. I also think that I think the world of that Illinois team as well. I thought they could make a run in this tournament until I saw that they had to face Houston in the round of 32. And I mean, Houston is criminally underseeded as a 5.
Absolutely.
They should be a 2 seed by the numbers. And they didn't have whatever the quad 1 wins. It's interesting. The committee has gotten a lot better at seeding, but not this year. I mean, Houston's an example of a team that was underseeded. Providence and Wisconsin were way overseeded. Those teams were really good in 1-score games, and that obviously affects your record, which goes into your seeding. But actually, I guess we'll get to Providence.
we will. I'm sure that we have the same kind of thought on that. But first game on the board Friday, the greatest story in the tournament, St. Peter's. They're guys. Brooklyn, New Jersey, New York. Coming out, not scared of anything. Played 2 great games, knocked off Kentucky in one of the wildest games that I can remember in the tournament. Just looking at their size on the court, I couldn't believe that they were actually putting it together. And then, out-toughed them in overtime and then get the win versus Murray State. Meanwhile, Purdue, a couple of tough games, pulled it out at the end in the round of 32. They have dudes. Just all Zach Edey is an absolute monster. Watching him on the floor against this St. Peter's team will be hilarious. I don't know if anyone's going to reach up to his middle of the stomach.
Right, exactly.
Ivy is absolutely electric. He might be my favorite player to watch the entire tournament. He reminds me of I haven't seen a whole lot of him before the last 2 games. He's got a little John Morant in him. I wouldn't be surprised. He looks like he's going to be a top 3 pick right now. He's awesome. Excited to see what he does. But the line, 12.5. The total is 135.5. This game is being played in Philly. Pretty sure Purdue is going to win this game. I'm wondering if St. Peter's has one more run in them to keep it within the 12.5 points.
No, I think that's obviously the question. I have Purdue by 13.5. I've not bet this simply because I think it's a really big number, and I think that Purdue is a little bit overrated. But in my numbers, simply because they were really hot in the beginning of the season, making a lot of threes, and we've seen massive regression, as we expect when every single person on your roster is hitting a career high in 3-point field goal attempts. For Purdue, except for Sasha Stefanovic, who's just a lights out shooter. His true skill level is near the 40% or whatever he's at this year. But all those other guys are shooting career highs, and that wasn't sustainable. I'm not exactly sure what they hit against Texas, but in their previous 8 games, they hadn't hit 40% in any single game. 3 losses in those 8 games. So, and Purdue, by the numbers, looks terrible on defense. I think I had them 76th heading into the tournament. It's interesting because they had a lot of the same guys as last year, and that team was 25th in defense. So I think the truth for that unit is somewhere in between. So it's a Purdue team that is not as good as their offensive numbers suggest. It's probably better than their defensive numbers suggest. I still don't really believe in them. They're going to win this game. But I didn't bet this game just simply because the number is so big. And it reminds me a lot. I mean, I did bet Arkansas to cover a pretty big number against Oral Roberts last year. Kind of similar situation, Sweet 16. Didn't work out. It's not saying I'm not saying that's why I didn't bet this, but it's an example of a game where there's a pretty big point spread, and with a favorite that I don't particularly trust. So it's a stay away from me.
Yeah, stay away from me too. I would like to see a close game, but I think that it'll be interesting to watch. 1, because we only get so many games left, and 2, just the athletic difference on the court and the size difference is just going to be so stark. I can't wait to watch it. But if I'm not betting on Purdue, I'm secretly rooting for Peters to get this one done. I think that'd be a lot of fun to see a 15 advance to the Elite 8. All right, probably the most interesting game for me in terms of betting on Friday. Providence plus 7.5 against Kansas. Total is 141.5. I hate this Providence team. I've lost so much money on this Providence team. I follow a lot of the luck ratings from KenPom. Obviously, they're the luckiest team in the country. I try to fade that whenever I can in good situations. And it seems like every time I did it against Providence in situations that were great, I lost. And the only time that they've lost recently is when they lost by 30 to Creighton, who is also one of the luckiest teams in the country. So I decided to stay away from that one. So I haven't even been able to profit on their 30-point losses. At some point, I swear to God, I'm going to win a bet against Providence. It might be this week. It might be this game. I hope it is. I will be on Kansas for sure. But I have a feeling the market's actually telling me that I'm wrong. It's going towards Providence here.
Is it?
Yeah, it is a little bit.
I thought I saw a lot of Kansas minus sevens yesterday. And then a lot of 7.5 today.
I'm kind of basing this on some bet total. So 64% of the bets, 86% of the money is coming on Providence. So bigger bets are coming in right now on Providence. And the open was 8. So we are a little bit lower at this point. Maybe it's bumped up a little bit from that 7.
Yeah.
I hope that it gets back down to 7 because I would like to bet this again.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I bet the Kansas minus 7 yesterday. Providence was 11-2 in games decided by 5 or fewer points heading into the tournament, and that is why they are wildly overseeded as a 4. And then in their last game against Richmond, both Providence and Richmond took 22 attempts from 3-point range. Providence hit 12 and Richmond hit 1. So that is why Providence blew them out. There's a lot of randomness in 3-point shooting, and that doesn't project forward. So you can kind of throw that result out in some sense and kind of believe on your pre-tournament prior what you thought about this Providence team. And I just don't think this Providence team is very good. I do like Kansas. They're an explosive offensive team, one of the best in the nation. I have some concerns about them on defense, but I don't think it matters in this game. My numbers have Kansas by 8. I would bet it I love it at 7, probably bet it at 7.5. And I expect the Jayhawks to run away with this.
Yeah, so do I. And I'm hoping that they do because I really need a win versus Providence at some point this season. The one thing about Kansas, I watched that entire Creighton game. I was in Vegas. We had a lot of live bets when that game was really close. So I kind of needed Kansas there at the end. I am so annoyed with the amount of long 2-pointers that they take. I think it's a real killer for them as we go forward in the tournament. They love those 15, 17-foot jumpers. And it's just so inefficient that you get into a game next time. I mean, they're going to play Iowa State or Miami in the next one if they get done with this. Mm-hmm. I don't like either of those teams either, but if Kansas if they're taking 15 or 20 of these 2-pointers, they're going to get screwed at some point in this tournament.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. I mean, they are. I mean, Abaji's been great from 3. I think Braun's he's been good from 2. I don't know what his 3-point rate is, but they have the wing talent to hang with anyone in the country. So hopefully they'll stop taking dumb shots and start making some smart ones.
Yeah, I would love to do that. All right. Now, my favorite game, maybe of the entire weekend, North Carolina, UCLA. North Carolina plus 2.5 right now, over under 141.5. Another really interesting style matchup. UCLA, this Mick Cronin team, they love playing half court. It's one of the reasons that I love them versus St. Mary's because no one's going to beat UCLA in a rock fight. They are going to win every single one of those. They did great against St. Mary's. This North Carolina team will run you to death. And I know that they blew a 25-point lead against Baylor. Baylor's a really good team. UNC was also red hot at the beginning of the game. They also get their guy who scored 12 points in 2 minutes ejected as soon as he's off his hot streak. That had to be super deflating. But they get it done in overtime. They get a win. They have some days to rest. This game's on Friday. I'm just super interested to see which style wins out here. I think that if UNC pushes the pace on them, they could really beat UCLA in this game. And I kind of like them as a dog here, even though I really, really like Mick Cronin as a head coach.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of UCLA. I thought they were massively overrated in last year's tournament in that run where Juzang got really hot. And you can't even find Juzang on draft boards these days, right? He just got really hot at the right time, which, good for him. And then part of it's like my bias because they beat Michigan and I live here in Ann Arbor in that elite game. I mean, a game that Michigan absolutely should have won. Mm-hmm. My numbers really do like this UCLA team. They're borderline top 10 team. I have them by about 3 in this game. Yeah, actually, I mean, I did bet them against St. Mary's. So I bet the money line against St. Mary's because I did think they would advance. And as for North Carolina, I mean, did you not think that they were just going to get stomped when that game headed into overtime?
Oh, yeah. After a 25-point lead, I couldn't believe that they won in overtime. I left to go to the bathroom in Vegas. I was like, well, this game's over. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I had a UNC plus 5.5 ticket. I was like, well, OT, that's where dogs go to die. Just rip up that ticket. I'm done. And then I come back 2 minutes in, they're up. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. I mean, kudos to them for just being up in the game. They played really well, shot really well against a very good Baylor team. Very, very good Baylor team. So, yeah, I think I don't have a bet on this game. I'm interested in watching it because it is a really interesting contrast of styles. And again, like just me as a prognosticator, I'm trying to get over my inherent biases over UCLA and try to see them more objectively. So I guess I'll be working on that while I watch this game.
I think the thing to like about UCLA is they're really starter heavy. And all 5 of those guys that are out on the floor for, 30, 35 minutes a game are pretty talented. And they seem to work really well together. They seem like a unit, which is great. North Carolina is just dudes. And they can ball out like that. It's just like it's the Duke thing. They got dudes. They got 5 stars all over the place. All these guys can get hot. And if they push the pace and they get hot like they were against Baylor, not even as hot as they were against Baylor, just a little bit, this UCLA team just doesn't have that high-end 5-star talent to compete. I'm hopeful because I'm going to bet UNC that Hubert Davis is like, okay, guys, just go. We got to score. First one to 80 points in this game wins because we'll beat UCLA in that game. But I think we'll know pretty early. If they get into half-court sets, they're dead. Absolutely dead. Right. UCLA will win that game.
And how brutal was it to watch North Carolina try to inbound the ball against Baylor's press?
Oh, my God.
It was just it's like you keep trying the same thing and not getting the results. So, yeah, highly talented team. And I was kind of against hiring of Hubert Davis, has never been a head coach before. And you're kind of seeing that, Steve Lavin roll the ball out there to talented kids kind of attitude a little bit. But I mean, clearly they got guys that can play. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So, we'll see. It'll be, I mean, I think UCLA wins this game and advances, but again, the styles definitely matter. I
want to see how much of a dick Mick Cronin wants to be because he could just go full court press the first 5 minutes of the game and just absolutely shatter UNC's confidence. Just like we saw what you couldn't do against Baylor. Let's go.
Right. But then, and they can break the press, then you have then you kind of jumpstart their fast break too. So, but yeah, why not? This is the NCAA tournament, and just think about the position they're in, right? In that region where I think there's either of those teams is a very winnable game against Purdue in the next round. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They can beat Purdue. I think this is the one, we'll get to it at the end, but this is the one region where I'm like, okay, I just want to bet whoever wins this game and just roll over. So just bet money line on North Carolina. If they do that, just roll it over into beating Purdue. I think that's probably a better way to take this than betting them at plus 255 right now. But it'll be interesting. I definitely like both these teams, whoever wins this, to advance to the Final Four. All right, last game on the board, Friday night, Iowa State, Miami. Iowa State currently plus 2.5. Total is 133.5. I have no idea what to make of this game. I bet against Miami. I bet on USC. That was stupid. I did not care about them in the last game. I did bet Iowa State in their first 2 games. I don't really love the team, though, just matchup-wise. This is definitely like the worst game of the Sweet 16 for me. It's kind of weird that they put it last as like the hammer. This should be like the first game off the board. Like, just get it out of no one wants to deal with it. But it's still a game that we could bet on in the NCAA tournament, so let's discuss it. What's kind of your lean in this game?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't have one. I don't really know these teams at all. I have Miami by about a half point in this game, so that certainly suggests value on them. I like I said, I don't really know these teams at all. It's not when I head into the tournament, like my analysis is really heavily focused on the teams that can win it all because that's what I need to do for my customers in terms of bracket advice. So that means I don't know much about these teams, and I'm just going to stay mum so I don't make a fool out of myself here.
I mean, it is very interesting. I'm going to use some KenPom numbers for a second. Iowa State's offensive rank is 151, and Miami's defensive rank is 157. So they're both terrible at that when Iowa State's on offense. And then on the other side of the ball, Miami's offense is ranked 17th, and Iowa State's defense is ranked 10th. So make of that what you will. It's strength on strength and weakness on weakness all over the place. Which one wins out? I don't know. Given the fact that I think that both of these teams are probably evenly matched, it kind of seems like a coin flip to me. If you have to bet it, my lean would probably be towards Iowa State plus 2.5. Just throw it out there, see what happens. Just a little bit of money, maybe a little money line plus 120. But I don't think that either of these teams are going to get past Kansas. So I think that the Kansas right now is actually a good transition into futures bets. Kansas right now minus 190 to win the Midwest. I know it's a high number, but they're minus 350 against Providence right now. We both think that Providence stinks, and Iowa State and Miami we both don't know anything about, and do not think that they can compete with Kansas. That minus 190, it might be a little tasty. I'm not. You shouldn't bet the juice that much on a little randomness here, but I think Kansas is pretty close to a lock to make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I like to identify the region of death, like in like they call the group of death in the World Cup.
Yeah,
this is the region of eternal life.
Yeah,
and this was the region of eternal life before the tournament started. Again, Providence and Wisconsin has vastly overseeded 3 and 4s. Man, I mean, how thrilled. I mean, Kansas is a good team. Don't get me wrong. Auburn was probably not the strongest 2 seed, and they got knocked off. Yeah, I mean, Kansas is legit. So you got to be thrilled to be sitting in the region of eternal life and looking, minus 190.
Yeah, minus 190. All right. Why don't we do this? Who do you think is going to come out of each region? We'll just do it that way, and then we'll look at the odds. All right. All right, so the South we have Zona, Houston, Nova, and Michigan. Who do you think is going to the Final Four?
Yeah, I honestly think it's Houston. My numbers will back that up by 0.1 point over Arizona. It's obviously really tight by the numbers. I just think I like the team. The numbers like the team, and I kind of have some questions about Arizona. So I'll say Houston there. It was also tight. I mean, that was actually part of my bracket advice that. Yes, Arizona's a favorite and they probably get out of that region, but it's reasonable to pick Houston to mix it up a little bit. And I'm still going to go with that.
So Zona currently plus 160, Houston plus 190. So if you would have bet that pre-tournament, like you told everybody, maybe a little value on that would have been a nice hit, or at least a potential spot to fade here. West, Gonzaga minus 170, Texas Tech plus 350, Duke plus 450, and Arkansas plus 1,000. I assume that you think that Gonzaga is going to make it out of here, although maybe a game with Duke makes it a little interesting.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I think Gonzaga should make it out of here. Can Duke beat them? Yeah, absolutely. And they already have this year. But I expect that to be the matchup. And but yeah, I mean Gonzaga should make it out.
Maybe Duke is a plus 450, third in the region. Maybe interesting.
No, it is really interesting because I haven't run the numbers Sweet 16 for these Final Four probabilities, but I would bet that my number would kind of be right on the market in terms of Duke. So if you're betting Duke, you're betting on their potential to do it. And I did take some 17-1 before the tournament on Duke.
Nice.
Simply because if Coach K is cutting down the nets, I would like some monetary compensation for my wife by having to
watching that. That's funny. Midwest, we already went over. Kansas minus 190, Miami plus 475, Providence plus 500, and Iowa State plus 650. We both think that Kansas is going to advance to the Final Four there, although 190 may be a prohibitive entry point on buying this bet. East, Purdue plus 120, UCLA plus 200, North Carolina plus 255, and St. Peter's 1,600. That's not happening. I think that the price on UCLA or UNC is probably pretty good. It's just which one do you pick? And that's kind of the hard part here. I don't feel confident in either in that game. Obviously, I'm going to bet on North Carolina, but I don't think that's a lock by any measure. But I do think either team definitely has a chance to win against Purdue.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Purdue probably should be the favorite slightly, but yeah, there's definitely a possibility there. I mean, and Ivy is such a talent, as you mentioned, and such an explosive athlete. I think it kind of mirrors that the rest of that team is not particularly great athletes, kind of very average Big Ten recruiting rankings and not the most athletic team. So that, again, part of the reason why I'm not high on Purdue.
All right. I think that does it. Ed, it has been an absolute pleasure running through your numbers with you. Maybe we'll do this before the Final Four. I'd love to have you back on sometime. You can go follow him at The Power Rank on Twitter and go to thepowerrank.com for all of his information. Go listen to his podcast, the Football Analytics Show, and Covering the Spread. So, Ed, until next time, good luck with your bets in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Jason. Have a good one.
You too.